So welcome to the HCS Analyzer tutorial. So what I propose you as an introduction to the HCS Analyzer software is to give you an overview about the user interface that has been developed. So as you can see, in the center of the window you have access to a dark blue panel that will contain the plate that is currently under process. On the left side you have access to many different options to navigate, to zoom in, zoom out, and to select classes that are related to your screening. On the right side you have access to a kind of descriptor management panel that include not only the descriptor that is currently selected, but also all the descriptor that you can access. On the bottom, what you can see is you have access to different tabs that basically summarize the kind of pipeline process that you will use during the data analysis, correction, and export of your screening. So let's start by generating a really simple screening. So for that we'll start by generating synthetic data. So for that, just go to generate screen, choose univariate. So univariate just means that the screening we will generate will contain only one descriptor. On the top of the window, what you can see on the right side is the design of your screen. So you decide the number of plates, you decide also the plate dimension in terms of column and row. So let's keep it this way. So it means that we would generate 10 plates of a 384 regular micro titer plate that are commonly used for screening. Then after here we can design also, and we can decide what kind of readout will appear for this first screening. So on value distribution, what we will choose is first of all a regular compound distribution with a readout of an average of 1000 with a standard deviation of 300, and we will also include, as usual I would say, two controls, a positive control and a negative control that will be located within the plate, the column number 2 and column number 1 with different mean and same standard deviation. You can also corrupt your data by adding some kind of artifact, but we will come back on this for another tutorial. Okay, so let's keep it this way, really simple, and just generate. So what you can see directly is in the middle of your window the dark blue screen has been changed by this plate. And so if you want to navigate from within the 10 plates that you generated, you can go there and you can choose a plate that you want to go to. So by example, you can go to plate 8, you can go to plate 2, but you can also navigate this way by clicking on this button, which will make you move to the next one or make you come back to the previous one. What is important at this stage is also to understand that the colors that you are looking at are related to this descriptor, the descriptor that is currently selected. So you can see that for this plate the minimum value is minus 40.5 and the maximum value is about 2000. If you move to another plate, of course the value will change regarding the data of this descriptor for this plate. If you want to see more precisely, or if you want to fit the plate design to your screen, what you can do is basically just zoom in or zoom out using those two buttons. And you can see that after you can navigate and move your cursor within the plate. Okay, so let's come back to such a kind of design. So in HCS Analyzer, the idea is to be able to design your plate for quality control purpose, but also for phenotypic extraction. So what we call design is basically to associate the classes to a certain number of well, by example. And if you want to see those different phenotypes or those different classes more clearly, you can just click on display classes or press C. And here you can see that we design during the process, during the first process of generating synthetic data, a negative control that is located on column number 1, and a positive control that is, number 2, and a positive control that is located on column number 3. So they are respectively in red and green color, and all the rest has been defined as control, which is here class number 2. You can also change the classes of the well by selecting the classes that you want to associate to, and just, by example, select a certain number of well and just release. And you can see that here, so 6 well has been associated to the negative classes. What is important to understand is when you are performing such kind of selection, the well that has been turned into red are the wells that are located at this position, whatever plate it is. Why? Because the selection has been defined as with apply to all plates. So if I move to another plate, let's say plate 9, I can see that those 6 wells are still red. So by default, this is checked because this is usually the way people are designing plate. When they start to design something, they want to apply it to the entire screen. However, if you want to select a few well or change a few well into another kind of control, but just for only one plate, you can do it by unchecking this checkbox. You can see that the cursor shape changes, and you can select, let's say, by example, let's go back to positive, and you can select some of them as positive. And what you can see is, let's come back to the regular mode. You can see that on plate number 9 we have some green well, but if we go on plate number 7 we don't have them. If you want to see a more clear version of your screening, you can choose visualization and click on full screen view. When you do that, what you can see is all the plate of your screen. If you move the mouse over one plate, you can see the name of the plate, and you can see all the different values. It gives you a pretty interesting overview of the readout of your screen for this descriptor. If you want to take a look at all the classes of the design of your screen, just click on display classes. This is what we can see. So we can see that, let's zoom a little bit more, we can see that we have here all the design that we perform all over the screen, and except for the last plate where we decided just to design one column, almost one column of positive control. Okay, so let's go back here and let's close this window now. Now, in terms of user interface, what is important also to notice is when you are moving your cursor over a well, you have a kind of panel that is appearing, giving you information that are related to this well. So you can see that for this well, that is H11, this is a compound, and we have only one descriptor, and the value of this descriptor for this well is about 900, and this is class number 2. If you want to have more precise information about this well, just right click on it and choose info. And when you do that, kind of histogram is appearing at this point. Here, because we are just working with a single value descriptor, it's not really an histogram, it's just a bar. And this bar contains, of course, the values that you saw before. Here you have the name, information, and even concentration if you want. And locus ID if you are working with cRNA screening. You can also change and put whatever information that you want, or change manually the concentrations or the name of the compound, and just update and close. You have more information about it, and for certain purpose you have access. In certain cases you can also access to the images that are related to this well. So let's close this well for the moment. So finally, in terms of user interface, and before moving to the more higher description of the descriptor, you can also right click and turn on the 3D visualization. At this stage, what you can see is another window is appearing, and you can use your mouse to play with the 3D view. So by clicking and moving the mouse, you can also rotate your 3D visualization. You can extend the window, and by pressing different keys such as shift, you can shift your visualization. You can also press Ctrl to rotate your visualization, and when you right click on this, you have also access to a certain number of options such as, or information such as well description, or the option of the 3D visualization, such as where you can change, for example, the size of your well and the opacity. Let's put it like this, and you can see that here the well change and the opacity too. If you want to close this window, just right click on it and click on turn off 3D visualization. Okay, so now let's play a little bit more with the descriptor list during the next tutorial.